What's up, guys? Just getting set up here. We are in Lakeland, Florida. Beautiful, sunshiny Lakeland, Florida. It's all our lakes. Lakeland's like halfway between Tampa and Orlando. All right. We're starting a little bit early. That's all right. All right, so if you guys saw my announcement earlier, today we're going to do a Munich Dunkel. Munich Dunkel is a traditional German dark lager. A long time ago, the Germans decided that they wanted to enact a purity law, which basically stated that all beer that was going to be made in Germany could only have 4 ingredients, and that's water, hops, yeast, and barley. Nothing else. None of the crazy adjunct ingredients that we put in stuff today. No chocolates, no hot peppers, none of that stuff. So the traditional dark lager, nice. The beer was horrible. We're not going to make a horrible beer today. This one's going to be amazing. The Munich Dunkel was the beer that they were drinking whenever they enacted the German purity law. So we're going to go back old school, but this is a really, really nice beer to drink. When it's cool outside, you want to sit by the fire. I mean, it's 90 degrees here today. I'm sweating. Well, they should know what our beer is here soon. I mean, they're starting to get some of our West Coast IPAs. I hope that we don't taint the decent German beer that's left. But it's 90 degrees here in Florida today, something like that. We don't ever see wintertime, so the Munich Dunkel's, it's going to have to be me sitting out by the fire pit at about 65 degrees on Christmas. All right, so the very first thing that you want to do, and it's kind of like with cooking, is you want to have mise en place. You want to have everything in its place. You want to be ready to go. You don't want to be scrambling around looking for something. Certain things are time sensitive. Hop additions. Exactly. Adding your grains. Your grains have to steep at a certain temperature. Well, if you go over your temperature, you're not going to get the right the steep going. You're going to get different color. You might not get the right sugar extractant. So you want to have everything ready to go. So for me, and it really doesn't matter if you use one of our kits or use somebody else's kits, or you make one of your own. Very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up, and I know I'm a guy, but I'm going to read the instructions. The instructions for making beer are pretty simple. Every single one is pretty much the same, but there are going to be little things that differentiate them. So you definitely want to go through and you want to see exactly what your recipe is calling for, when you need to do your hop additions, when do you need to add your grains, when do you need to add your malt extracts, things like that. So this one's a pretty straightforward recipe. I mean, I wrote it, so I pretty much know it like the back of my hand, so I'm not really going to have to go over this too much. I might consult back to it for hop additions or whatever. All right, then I'm going to look and see what we got. This is German tradition hops. It's not got a really high alpha content. It's got kind of a mid-range alpha and beta content. So what that means is you're not going to have a super high level of bitterness, and you're not going to have like an outrageously high level of aroma either. And that's really traditional German style. All this thing, where we get these huge, huge hop flavors and these huge hop noses, that's American. I mean, that's American as apple pie. Actually, it's West Coast. And so those big, big hop flavors that you get, this level of it is kind of creepy. Thanks. Stouts aren't hard. I mean, it's basically the same thing. Stout, the only difference between a stout and an IPA or a German lager or anything like that is stout's going to have a secondary fermentation, and that's where you're going to have to add in your chocolate, your coffee, whatever else you want to put in it. That's really the only difference between doing any other kind of beer. So, anyways, back to the Munich Dunkel. That's going to be our only hop addition. One hop addition. All right. What else? We've got some grains. These are going to be our steeping grains. We're going to have some dry and liquid malt extract. Now, this is what makes the brew day easy. In another one of our classes, we're going to do what's called an all grain. And an all grain adds about another hour and a half to the brew day. So I kind of like doing this. This is a partial mash. anyways, we're going to have a couple of these. The CBW Munich is the liquid malt extract that we're using. We've got 6.6 pounds of that. And then we're also going to add in a little bit of dry malt extract. The dry malt extract is a Pilsen Light. This is just going to provide a lot of the sugar to our beer. The color really is going to come from this deep, 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 rich, dark roasted malts. And the majority of that is like a chocolate malt. Let's see. Exactly, it is Carafa 2. Half a pound of Carafa 2. Okay. All right, well, let's get going. Oh, use some plus, that's what I was talking about. Your lager yeast. I'm going to put this in the fridge until I am ready to pitch it. Cold yeast is happy yeast. So my fridge is right over here. I don't need my yeast going bad on me before I get started on any of this. So, all right, the only other thing really that we're going to need is we're going to need to make sure that we have our utensils. Really, this is my #1 utensil right here. I love this baby. Stainless steel, big old spoon. Got it at a restaurant supply store. You're going to need your airlock and bung. You're going to need some Star Sand. You got to keep everything clean, right? I use the No Scratch pink scrubby things. And I don't buy PBW. PBW is expensive. It's $8 a pound. OxyClean free. $8 for 3 pounds. Works just as good. All right. For clarifying, you can use Irish moss if you want. You can use biotin powder, whatever you choose. And a little yeast nutrient. This is going to help our little yeasties not break down whenever they get the sugar shock. I've got my thermometer. Need your thermometer. And then I don't use a hydrometer. I use a refractometer. Clarifying. All right. Yeah, so fermentation is violent. Fermentation produces a lot of different proteins in the beer. So what these do, like the Irish moss and the biotin powder, these get added during our boil. And whenever the beer is done fermenting, what will happen is these particles will lock onto any of the big solid proteins that are left in your beer, and as they get colder and colder and colder, they're going to drop it all the way to the bottom. So that way, all you have to do is just siphon off the top of that big protein layer that's at the bottom, and you have perfectly clear beer. You don't have stuff floating around in it. It's not like you're eating a pork chop. Yeah, if you have an unfiltered beer like a Hefeweizen, yeah, there's no filtering whatsoever. They don't use any kind of Irish moss or biotin powder or anything. That is just straight up, yeah, unfiltered. That's kind of why you feel like you're chewing on a pork chop. Those are all the proteins that stay in suspension. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add some water into our brew kettle, and we're going to get that baby fired up. And I got a special treat today too. So not only did I want to make beer, but I wanted to do some hot dogs and some burgers on my, I don't know if you guys can see it, my beer can grill, my awesome beer can grill that I got. My Boulevard Brewing unfiltered wheat beer can. All right, so what we're going to do, let me get you guys in here. Woohoo, thank you. All right, so I'm using a Bayou Classic 10.5 gallon aluminum pot. You know, a lot of people are like, well, you know, why are you using aluminum? That's no good for you. Look, there's nothing wrong with aluminum, okay? I mean, you can use stainless if you want. It's entirely up to you. I love my aluminum pot. Easy enough to clean. Super, super cheap. I got it at Lowe's for like $70. The only thing different that I did is I drilled out a 1/2-inch hole, and I put a ball valve on it. So this is going to make it easier to drop out the wort whenever it's done. So I don't have to sit there and siphon it out. Yeah, it's a pain. I'm just using your standard turkey fryer down here. And the only other thing I got is an old license plate. Now what this does is I put this on top of the burner to keep it from burning my ball valve. Burning my ball valve. Ball valve. All right. So I already know how my pot is. I know that I'm going to burn off about 1.25 gallons per hour. I'm going to be boiling for an hour, so the recipe calls for 5 gallons. I'm going to do 6.25 gallons. Pretty simple, right? I use what's called RO water. Now, you guys can go right to the front of your grocery store and get these filled. That's RO water. RO is simply reverse osmosis. It's a process where they go in and they basically strip the water down to nothing. It doesn't have any minerals in it, doesn't have any salts in it whatsoever. It is just pure H2O. It's not pure, but it's about as pure as you can get. A lot of people will go and build their water profile back up. They'll add calcium, they'll add gypsum, they'll add different salts to get the water profile they want. I was in Boston a few weeks ago talking to the brewers at Sam Adams, and they have their own their Boston water profile that they've completely taken down and analyzed down to the molecule, and they've replicated it at their other two breweries in Pennsylvania and Ohio. So even though it's Pennsylvania and Ohio water, they're actually using Boston water to brew Sam Adams. Kind of a cool little thing. For me, unless I have a beer style that explicitly calls for it, I'm not going to build up the water whatsoever. I have not been to California breweries yet. I got to spend a little bit of time out in San Francisco a few years ago, but it was like 3 days in Cupertino back when I used to work for Apple. And I didn't get a chance. Trust me. I mean, Stone's on my list. Lagunitas on my list. Russian River's definitely on my list. My wife wants to go to Napa, so I said, look, we can go to Napa, Rare Barrel, and say, yeah, absolutely. Wife wants to go to Napa, I'm going to go to Russian River. That's all I'm saying. So, all right, we're going to get ready to add some water. I'm going to go with the 5 gallons first, and I got another one set up. It's about a gallon, gallon and a quarter, something like that. It really doesn't matter a whole lot. You don't want to overshoot. Undershooting is fine because you can always top up with a little bit of water afterwards. All right, 5 gallons. Yeah, that looks good. I'll check my gravity before I actually throw it into the fermenter just to make sure that it's right where it needs to be. Worst thing you can do is just put like watered down beer into your fermenter because it's going to be watered down, and there's nothing really you can do to save it. You can add a little extra sugar to crank up the alcohol, but then you're going to dry it out and it's just not going to be what you want. All right, so the next thing we got to do is we're going to get this baby fired up. I guess I better tighten that down before I do it. Safety first, right? I like to get a nice strong flame going. I know at 6.25 gallons, probably going to take somewhere around 20 minutes to get that water to a boil. Sorry, not to a boil. Yeah, I got Instagram. It's at Swan Brewing. All right, so I'm going to read our instructions here, and we're going to steep our grains at 155 degrees. So that's what I want to get this water to first. I want to get this to 155 degrees. So I've got a little spot right here on the top of my lid where I can put my little temperature probe. Doesn't really reach down into the water. Used to on my old one. That's fine. I know it's going to take somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes. I'll check it in about 10 just to see where we're at. Now, it's very, very important that you hit it right at 155. If you go over 155, what's going to happen is you're going to put off different enzymes in your grains. So if you mash too high, what's going to happen is you're going to get a little bit too much sweetness. And if you mash too low, you're not going to get proper attenuation. A little bit of the science to it, but within a couple of degrees, it's okay. But if I were to do like 160 degrees when it's supposed to be 155, no good. 150 instead of 155, no good. 156, okay. 154, sure, no problem. But you want to be really within that range. If you have a digital thermometer, even better. All right. While I do that, I'm going to throw a little lighter fluid on my grill so that I can get the hot dogs and hamburgers going in a little bit. I always recommend if you're going to make beer, you gotta have some food too. I set up a little tent just because, like I said, it's 90 degrees outside today. All right, and we're going. Now, this is the part when it gets not so exciting. So what I do is I kick on some tunes. Kick on some tunes, kick back. You know you got a few minutes. I've got my MacBook out here because I got a program that I run called Beersmith, and Beersmith allows me to log all of the different aspects of the brew day. That way, if I've come up with a really, really great beer and things just work absolutely perfect, I can go back and I can replicate it just by reading exactly what I did, knowing exactly where my numbers were, knowing exactly what time I started. You know, have you ever made a sour? I'm not a fan. So let me tell you about sours. I've had a bad experience making sours. So sours, the reason that they're sour is because they have this bacteria that grows on the top of them. Just do yourself a favor or don't do yourself a favor. Do a Google search for sour fermentation, and what you'll see is they're called pellicles, and it's just like these big white glob bubble-looking things, like spider veins that go out that form on top of the fermenting beer. And I mean, honestly, it just grosses me out. And so, just knowing how they're made, that kind of just pushes me away from them. I know they're absolutely delicious. You know, I know I'm probably a snob for not liking them. Yeah, they look gross, exactly. So, not only that, but once you make a sour, and they do taste good, but once you make a sour in a fermentation vessel, you can't use that fermentation vessel for anything else. You risk cross-contamination no matter what you do it to. I mean, you just have to set the thing on fire. And, I use plastic fermentation vessels. So that's not going to work. And I like using mine to make all different kinds of stuff. I don't want to just have one just to make sours because I don't drink them that much. Now, do I have some in my fridge? Absolutely. I'm probably going to bust out my Sam Adams Cosmic Mother Funkin' a little bit because I don't have any other beer. I blew it at the Brew Fest last night. I went through 5 gallons of bourbon vanilla imperial porter that I was hoping to have on tap today. So I'll probably get into the KMF here in a little bit. All right, so I'm going to kick on some tunes. Yeah. I mean, that's where we're at right now. A little hot. Got fire going. About to have another fire going. Kick on a little Beats radio. Kind of need a beer. All Alright, so this is from a new Tampa brewery. It's called Hidden Springs Ale Works. This is their Ginger Mullet. This is their Irish Red or Red Rye, something like that. My buddy brought it over to me yesterday. And this is from one of my buddies' his wedding. They gave away pint glasses. I do beer trading, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've got some great California beers, I got some great Florida beers down here. I mean, you like Cigar City, High Life, you go right up to Publix and go get it out of the grocery store. This is a great idea. If you ever know anyone, just come and do pint glasses for their wedding. Great thing to take home. My buddy gave me a couple of them. Oh, you are by Russian River. Yes, yes. Hit me up on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. We need to talk. Absolutely. Now, I know they only do the younger on site, but how easy is it to get the elder? Easy? Kinda? Maybe? Nice. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to try some Blind Pig. Never had Blind Pig. I've never had Pliny the Elder. Maybe. I'm not as great on Instagram as I should be. Like, I'm old and I'm just trying to get into everything. You know, I was in Facebook land for so long. All right. Here. Well, you're in California, so it's, what is it? It's only, oh my God, it's only like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry, I'm drinking. It's 11:20. That looks pretty good, doesn't it? Nice switch colors. It smells amazing. Very hoppy. Whoa. I love Firestone Walker. Now, I was in Austin at the beginning of the year, and so I actually got, because we don't have Firestone Walker down here, they don't distribute in Florida, go figure. But they did have it in Austin. Of course, I shoved as many bottles in my suitcase as I could flying back. But I finally got to have Double Jack. Oh, Austin's fantastic. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in a few bars there. But the Double Jack, I've got to say that's probably going down as one of my top 10 beers ever. So I wanted to go to Jester King. I was there with my wife, and I got an 18-month-old. He was less than a year then. So Jester King is only really open on like Friday night, Saturday, something like that. We were leaving Friday afternoon, so I didn't get to make it to Jester King. Yeah, I know. I didn't understand the whole thing with Austin, how, you know, their breweries and their tap rooms are only open like weekends. You know, there were a couple that were open during the week, but yeah, I know. I'll go back, trust me. I mean, Austin's just, it's a short little flight across the pond, not a big deal. And I mean, it's cheap. I can hop on JetBlue and be there, you know, hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, something like that. Yeah, it's like, it's really weird. Oh, speaking of Utah, oh man, don't even get me started. I was in Park City, just outside of Salt Lake 3 years ago, something like that. And I was staying at this Marriott, and just gotten in. I went down to the hotel bar. I'm like, all right, man, you know, what do you got on tap? He goes, well, it was all domestics. Well, give me one of those Heinekens. That's fine. I'll deal with the Heineken. And it comes out there was 3.2%. I'm like, dude, what is this? Is it all 3.2%? That's not what it is. He goes, oh, well, that's the mass-produced beer here. If you want to get anything bigger, you got to go to the brewery. Luckily, there's this fantastic brewery, the Wasatch Brewery in Park City, where I was actually able to go in and get a nice 10.5% stout. Made me happy. I was able to stumble back to the hotel, and I didn't get picked up by the Mormon police. Alright. Check on my, oh, let's go back. Yeah. Alright. Let's check on my temp here, see where we're at. 148, getting close. All right, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to take my grains and I'm going to put them in my grain bag. Grain bag's great because they're just going to steep in there, and I don't have to worry about sucking up any loose grains later. Make sure if you're getting a beer kit that it always comes with the grain bag. Ask the guys. So if it doesn't, make sure that you got grain bags. All right. I mean, that's really what it is, a grain bag and grains.
And they never really got it together enough to put out anything of real substance in a recorded sense. But that's all changed now. The debut album, Secret, came out a few months ago.
That's it. It's just going to be a little bit of steeping grains. What this is going to do is it's not going to impart a whole lot of flavor. This is going to impart most of the color. Most of the flavor is actually going to come from the malt extracts that we're going to add right at the beginning of the boil, which is after these steep for about 20 to 25 minutes or so. They smell delicious. That's a little warm right here. I'm not going to lie. That's all right. And 155. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and kill my gas right now. All right. And I'm really just going to take this grain bag and I'm going to kind of steep it just for a few minutes, just like I would a tea bag, because I really want to get that water in there, in between those grains. And I want to make sure that I suck as much of the sugars out of them and as much of that color out as I possibly can. I'll show you here in a second what it looks like. Check this out. Yeah, turn off the heat, absolutely. At 155, because what's going to happen is you've got residual heat in there. I don't know if you remember, physics class, how, water will continue to heat up even though you have flame off of it. It's the retention of heat principle within the aluminum pot. So, anyways, this is what you can see it what it's starting to look like. So, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy and I'm really just going to plop it in there. And see how just releasing a little bit more of that color, and I'm really starting to get a good soak on those grains. Yeah, that's what you're looking for. Okay. Now once it's like that, you can kind of just set that guy off to the side. I'm going to take my little spoon that I got here. I'm actually going to tie it off. And the reason that I'm doing that instead of just letting it sit in there is because I don't want to have to fish it out later. It's right there on top. Makes it super, super easy just for me to pull out because I'm going to throw it away. Once those grains are done doing their thing, I don't need them anymore. The rest of it's just going to be the job of the liquid and the malt extract, or liquid and dry malt extract. All right, plug back in here. All right. So now that I've got the grains steeping, they're going to have to go for about 20 minutes. Yeah, that's a spent grain, exactly. Yeah, if you've heard of spent grain, and if you ever heard of people doing like spent grain cookies or spent grain bread, or giving it to a lot of farmers like to give it to their pigs or the cows or whatever, that's exactly what it is. Now, when you're doing big volume, you've got a serious amount of grains. I mean, I'm doing it here on a 5-gallon scale, and I'm only doing a partial mash, so I don't have a whole lot dog treats, absolutely. We got a place here in town that makes them. But the breweries, will have big old 55-gallon drums full of this stuff after every single, batch that they do. I think our Lakeland Brewing Company here in town, I was looking the other day, for their 300 gallons, I mean, it's 900 pounds of grain or something like that, something stupid. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and let that guy sit. Now I'm going to set Siri. Hey, Siri. Oh, I guess you can't hear me. Hey, Siri. Set a timer for 20 minutes.
Okay, 20 minutes counting.
Good. She's going to let me know in 20 minutes. That way I can go ahead and pull the grains out, and we'll go ahead and get that baby cranked up. Once we get it to a full boil, then we can go ahead and start doing our hop addition. We can do our dry and liquid malt extract addition, and then the long fun part gets going. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go out here, and I'm actually going to start the grill because I'm kind of getting hungry, and I really want some hot dogs and some hamburgers. So. Get a little more music going. Yeah. All right. Now, if I don't burn the tent down, we'll be in good shape. Woo! Now, we had a beer fest last night. It was a home brewing festival, and I don't know if you can't sell your own home brew. It's illegal. The ATF doesn't really, TTB, whatever you want to call them, really doesn't like that because it's untaxed. Well, on occasion, we get to go to these different festivals, whether it be at a brewery. Last night it was at the Brass Tap, which is this big craft beer bar down here. And they do homebrew festivals, where we've got a pretty big homebrew club here in town. I say pretty big. I mean, the town's only 125,000 people, but there's probably 30, 40 of us in town that make beer together on a regular basis, I'm sure. We do have bottle share, absolutely. Yep. If you look up Lakeland Homebrewers on Facebook, and then also just in Florida in general, there's a lot of bottle share going on. Beer Enthusiasts of Florida, Florida Bottle Share, something. I don't know. I'm on a whole bunch of them. Anyways, so occasionally we get to go to these festivals, like the one we had last night out at Brass Tap. And I'd like to say that I do enjoy them. I love going to them, but I'm always working them. I'm always the guy pouring beer. I'm not the guy that's going out and sampling all of the beers. And then I also I sell my own homebrew supplies. Well, I didn't take the supplies down to the thing last night, but I did take some of our new shirts. So I was sitting there selling our new local shirts last night. Like I had some that say, I hop Lakeland. Drink local Lakeland, and this one's the Lakeland, of course, is the land of the lakes. That's what they call it. That. So these are all the lakes in town. We had all these that I had to go pitch. So yeah, absolutely. That's a damn good beer. That baby is going to be dark. Alright. So the next step, after we get this done, we've probably got another 10 minutes or so on the grains. We're going to toss those grains out. I'm going to crank the heat back up, and we're going to get it boiling. I mean, full rolling, flat out boil. Now, this is the reason that I use a 10-gallon pot to do 5 gallons of beer. 10 gallons is perfect to prevent a boil over. If you try to do 5 gallons of beer in a 5-gallon pot, it doesn't work. You'll have stuff boiling over all over the place. The sugars get extremely volatile at a super high temperature, and they just start erupting like Mount Vesuvius. So at 10 gallons, you can pretty much be sure she got a super, super, super big beer. Like you're trying to do, a 13% stout or something absolutely crazy. You might have to sit there and feather your flame to keep it from boiling over. But I can almost be guaranteed on a 10-gallon pot that I'm not going to boil over, which is pretty cool. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to get our liquid and dry malt extracts ready to go. so that we can dump those in whenever we get the flames kicked up really, really high. And by about that time, once we add all that, our coals should be ready, and I can go throw some burgers and some hot dogs up. Only the best. Yeah, I got some Nathans, you know what I'm saying? Now, cleanliness. Really kind of important to be as clean as possible. This is my old fermenter that I used in the last batch. I rinsed it off afterwards when I was done, but I didn't really do a good cleaning on it. The reason being is because you can clean it, but then you're going to have to clean it again right before you use it anyway. So I don't like doing double the work. It's laziness, I guess. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. I'll take a little bit of my OxyClean free. Just a little bit, don't need a whole lot. Dump it in there. And I got my hose right here. Alright, and really I'm going to be the world's best janitor right now. You want to get the, make sure you get the one that's not scratched. Reason being is if you get scratches inside your plastic container, little microbes and stuff can get up in there and it's almost impossible to get them out, and that will lead to funky beer. You know, unintentional sours or just straight up malt vinegar. One of the two.
Turnstile, then of course Radiohead, there, and we followed that with a great parquet course, Borrowed Time. My name's Matt Wilkinson, I'm here on Beats One until the turn of the hour, bringing you everything that's important and alternative and a little bit different right now. Coming up, a brand new band.
Make sure you get your lid and everything.
Literally straight out the tracks, nobody knows anything.
Get down in that crack.
We'll do in about 6 months' time.
I've got rubber seals on mine, so I want to make sure that I get in that rubber seal really, really well. Get in all this. Now we're going to sanitize afterwards. This is just to get the big particles out, but you know, if there's anything living in there, I kind of want to hit it twice. Top, everything.
I used the 5-gallon bucket and bought a homebrew kit. Went at it a couple times, but cleaning the bottles was the task that kind of did me in.
That's why I got it decorated. Everything goes to the keg, I don't worry about bottling.
Yeah, the bottling is a hassle.
Oh yeah, no, I bottled for quite a while. And, I'm not doing that anymore.
Now, you sell at the farmer's market?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I saw your food yesterday.
Yeah.
I usually play tennis on Saturdays, but I didn't have it yesterday, so I went down to buy those muffins that my daughter said.
Oh, little cruffin things?
Yeah,
I can't believe people line up at 6:45 in the morning for those.
I got there at 8 o'clock and there were 35 people ahead of me.
Yeah, and that was a small line yesterday. Normally she's got it wrapped up around the building. It's like crazy.
Well, it's better than...
That's what it is. It's kind of like the poor porker thing, you know? Yeah. Yeah. I'm also live streaming to the world on Periscope.
All right.
We're doing a brew session today, so. I mean, I'm live streaming to the world. I got one person watching right now.
Okay.
But I'll throw this on YouTube later
Yeah.
and people will watch it, so hopefully they'll watch it. But
So what kind of beer are you doing?
we're doing a Munich Dunkel today. Dark German lager. Should be pretty good. I gotta make beer, man. I'm completely out. We had that homebrew festival out of Brass Tap last night. And it's okay, No, that's Brew Hub. Brass Tap's over at Lakeside Village. You know where the Fit Niche is? Yeah, it's right next to the Fit Niche. Yeah, the bar there. So they closed off the parking lot, and there were probably, I don't know, 30, 35 of us that brought beer. And I brought 5 gallons of bourbon, vanilla, imperial porter. Went through all of it. I was like 5.5 gallons, something like that. I couldn't believe it. I was kind of upset because I didn't have any for today.
How long do you have to let it sit after you brew it?
Um,
How much do you do?
So this one's good. Well, since this is a lager, it's going to ferment for probably about 2 to 3 weeks, and then I'll lager it at right about freezing for probably another 4 to 5 weeks. But I can do your traditional pale ale. I can have the fermentation done in 2 weeks, and then right after that, I throw it in a keg. I'll force carbonate it, and I'll start drinking it. Yeah. With 2 taps on it, so.
Very good.
All right, man. I'll show you guys what he's talking about. I was pointing back here. That's the beer fridge, as you can see. 2 tap handles. I get to ferment on one side of it, pour beer on the other side. All right. All right, we got about 8 minutes and 28 seconds left. That's pretty good.
Oh, my cold is like...
Yeah, 90 degrees in Florida, mid-November. It's fantastic. Almost mid-November. There's no such thing as global warming. El Nino or something? I don't know. Oop. Got my airlock. All right. So, this is my airlock. If you guys never seen one before, this is designed to keep bad stuff out and allow the CO2 to escape. It's a 3-piece system. Whenever I get done, this is going to have some sanitized water in it. CO2 is going to go up, back down, and back out the top. No microbes going to be able to get back in. So, finish that off a little bit. Smells absolutely amazing. Can you guys smell it? It's like super dark. Here, check this out. You guys see? It's kind of a beautiful color right there. Yeah. So, got a little bit longer on that, another 5 minutes or so.
What I love about that guy,
Then we'll crank that heat back up.
he's
And,
totally stepped out of his shell on this new solo album.
You always gotta have a beer while you're making beer, trust me.
This kinksy sort of thing where he's writing about the area that he's from, and it's so cool to hear people writing about Liverpool, Merseyside, and the Wirral, because it's a really evocative place up there. You know, Catherine Dock, Huskisson Dock, these places.
5 minutes.
Places that nothing really happens there, but they give people inspiration and build right.
I got a little fan right down here that's blowing whatever cold air there is in on me, and it's still just not enough. I got a fan blowing back there.
Based in New York City, Vanessa Gomez, Vince McLean, and Elizabeth Scadden.
I used to live in Columbus, Ohio.
I saw this band play to precisely 21
I'd be used to getting like actually wintertime now.
That's not to say it was bad.
I don't know that I've ever had anything less than a 65-degree Christmas here.
Warhol-esque, Velvet Underground, everything you love about New York basically, but wrapped up with something new as well. It was a really charged performance, quite electrifying. This is their first song. Do check it out. I think they're going to be an important band next year. It's called Cuban Cigars. This is Beats One.
For some reason my grill didn't start right. So I thought I didn't throw enough lighter fluid on it. Alright, now when I get ready to pull this grain bag out, a lot of people will be like, no, don't squeeze the grain bag, you're going to release tannins, it's going to be horrible. No, squeeze that grain bag, get as much of that stuff out as possible. You want that baby to be a dark beer. I don't care what anybody says, squeeze that grain bag like you would a tea bag. That's going to be delicious. Does everybody have a beer? I see we got a few more people to join. It's like afternoon, right? It's like 11:45. Go ahead, pop open a beer, guys. It's Sunday. You ain't got nothing else to do. What's up, guys? Alright, so I got about 2 minutes left on my timer here. What I'm going to do, just to get things rolling a bit, is I'm going to go ahead and crank my heat back up. It's fine because my temperature's dropped enough now that in the next couple of minutes it's not going to raise it above 155. I might get a little bit more extraction out of it when I do it this way anyways. Now, how you regulate your flame is completely up to you. What I like to do is I like to get a nice jet right in the center and just get it so it just barely starts to go across the sides. That way I know I'm getting even flame contact all the way around the bottom. This is going to be really a lot more important whenever you start to add your dry and liquid malt extracts. Because if you have hot spots on the bottom of your pot, what's going to happen is you could end up getting some caramelization in the sugars. So if you got even heat distribution all the way around, you can really kind of minimize that effect. Alright, almost there. Yeah, so we got all the way down to like 152, which is fine because we hit the strike point, which is when I put the grains right in and I started to slosh them up and down like that. We hit the strike point right at 155. So What that is, you've got different proteins and different enzymes that happen at different temperatures. I think you talked about this earlier. One's called an amylase protein, and what that does is it chops the sugar up, and you'll have long chain and short chain sugar molecules. Well, what happens is you'll get more short chains or more long chains depending on where you strike it at. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for a nice balance. I want good color, I want good efficiency, and then I want some good sugars. I don't want too much sugar, I don't want too little sugar, I don't want too much color, too little color. So 155 is really like a fine balance on most of your ales. You'll find some of them will say, okay, we'll start it at like 145 and then we'll ramp up to 155. That's getting a little bit too complicated, and most people don't want to do that. It's just trying to control it within a degree, every so. Timer just went off. That means we're going to go ahead and pull it. But professional brewers do that. They'll actually do ramp-up schedules from like 145 to 155, and then they'll ramp it back down. And what they're doing is they're releasing different sugars at different intervals. All right. Get as much of that out as you possibly can. For me, I like a dark beer. I don't want no whippy dark beer. I mean, when I pour it, I want a nice, thick, dark head on top of it, too. And whenever we're done, that's what the spent grain bag's going to look like. You can now just take that guy, toss him right in your trash. All good. Or go ahead and save that, and you can make spent grain dog cookies, bread, whatever you want. For me, that's not enough really to save. I don't have any cows or pigs around here to go feed it to, so mine's going to go in the trash. Alright. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to give this baby a stir because I really want to get all of those sugars and all that color mixed up. Woo! That baby is cooking. Like making gumbo now. Get a beer. Alright, so this is going to hit boiling pretty fast. I would say within the next couple of minutes. So what I want to do is I want to look at my instructions and I want to see what my schedules are. And when I talk about schedules, you're going to add hops at a certain time during the boil. You're going to add dry malt extracts, usually at the beginning of the boil. Some people do them late addition. I like doing them at the beginning. It just gets, I think the sugars get better blended. Seem to get a little bit more concentration on it. All right, so we're going to add the 1 pound of Pilsen at the beginning of the boil. We're going to add 6.6 pounds of the Munich liquid malt extract, and we're going to add the German hops right at the beginning. I mean, everything is right at the beginning of the boil. I won't have anything to do. I'll add them all in right at the beginning. I'll make sure that everything gets cooked up really, really nice. And I'm going to let it go for 60 minutes. Pretty easy. You guys can choose to stay on or tune out and come back in a little bit. I'm going to run the whole thing. That's really all that's going to happen. Now, probably about 30 minutes into the boil, I'm going to add some sanitizer to my bucket, and then I'm going to start sanitizing all of my equipment. Very, very important that you want to sanitize everything that's going to touch your beer after the beer has been boiled. So as long as your beer is at 212 degrees and it's sitting there and it's going to kill anything that it touches. You don't have to worry about bacteria, wild yeast, or anything. When it starts to cool, that's when it starts to get dangerous. So anything that touches your beer after that point, you want to make sure it's perfectly sanitized. Star San, wonderful thing, absolutely. I use Star San a couple of different ways. I have Star San in a spray bottle because I find that that's best for getting up in the crevices to where, just a regular washcloth can't. I use this if I'm going to sanitize bottles. I use this to sanitize my taps. This is just a wonderful thing. I mix it up in the right concentration, pour it in here. No fuss, no muss. Bottle of Star San like this. This is like $15 or something like that. But this will last you, it'll last me a year. And I make beer every month at least, sometimes twice a month. There. It's very important that you don't let your cup run out of beer. It's also probably pretty important to stay hydrated. Throughout the show today. We're going to end with one now as well. It's called California. I think the album is one of the best of the year. One of the most highly anticipated as well. Do check it out. It's on Apple Music. And also while you're there, check out everything we've played on the show over the past 2 hours. We're all about new units, including wicked premieres. Joy again. Warning as well, they're a new band straight out of New York. We'll be back next week. But for now, Grimes, California on Beat Swan. Alright, we're getting to a boil now. We'll check this out. See that? That's what you're looking for. That's the kind of boil. Now, it can be a little bit more vigorous if you want. That's cool too. But you want at least that much. And see how much foam you get on top? And when I was talking about boiling over, you really got to watch it. Yeah, that's why I use the 10-gallon pot. Alright, now what I'm going to do I'm going to turn that guy down for a second while I add my dry malt extracts in, because what's going to happen is it's going to get real violent, like real violent as soon as you add all that sugar in.
Mary J. Blige on Beats One.
Hey, I'm Mary J. Blige, and you don't want to miss my first ever radio show called Real Talk on Beats One Radio. The very first show will be featuring the whole My Life album, playing every song from top to bottom, and talking about what it meant to me. See you then.
Get the show times on the Beats One page inside Apple
Alright,
Music.
so liquid malt extract, what you want to do is after you get as much
Beats.
out that's really going to pour,
Beats.
you want to go ahead and peel the that off. Okay. Tastes like a mixture between honey and maple syrup. Really good.
Future beats, eclectic soul, forgotten gems, and timeless sounds, all brought to you by Joe K. This is Selection Radio on Beats One.
Alright, so this is where you want to be a little careful. We'll take a little bit. Hot work. You want to put in here. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Close it up. It's like getting the last bit of ketchup, you know? You don't want to leave any of that behind. Stuff's expensive. And that's about as good as you're going to get.
And as always, it's about that time. My name is Joe K. This is Selection Radio, live from Los Angeles, worldwide, here on Beats One. You just heard an exclusive Sango. Speaking of Sango, we got the man in the house, Dada Sinha Tresh, coming out Tuesday. And he's going to be premiering Dada Sinha in full later today on the show, so keep it locked. Let's get into new music. An artist by the name of Goldwater. It's called Lotus. Feel the vibes on this. Sampling Esther's Ruby. We're about to get into that as well. Alright? Spread the word, tell a friend, tell everybody to tune in. This is a heavy, heavy, heavy show. My brother Sango in the building. We're about to get real deep. Let's go.
I'm going to have to switch my radio up because I can't deal with this.
Here come the jazz
malt extract. And boom. Done with our sugar additions. Alright. So, I'm going to crank this baby back up. Get it back to a boil. Then shut it off. You want to watch it. You want to feather this. So what happens, it's got so much sugar in there right now, it'll just go boil over like an old school, like elementary school science experiment. I mean, it's kind of cool, but... Alright. Since we only have one hop addition too, it's going to go right in at the beginning of the boil. The earlier you add your hops, that's going to add to the bitterness. The later you add the hops, it's going to add to the aroma. We only have one hop addition, so this is going to be bitterness and aroma right at the beginning of the boil. Now the reason that you have it boil for so long, there's a process that hops go through during the boil. It's called isomerization, and that's where different acids get turned into the different flavors that you recognize in your beer. A lot of the bitterness, some of the piney notes, some of the, some people say grassy notes, and orange, and different things that you get that are associated with hops. That only happens through isomerization. You can get some of it through just wet hopping, letting the hops sit in the beer for so long, but you won't get the full potential of it unless it goes through a certain amount of boiling. Because the oils are volatile over a certain temperature. It's like 110, 120 degrees, something like that. Alright, just waiting for it to get back up to a boil. I had to cut it off because we had so much sugar in there. I mean, it's quite a bit. Now, this is not going to be a big beer, but it's going to be probably somewhere around 6%. So that's a lot of sugar going in there all at once. You really got to watch it because it can boil over real quickly. My old pot was only 7.5 gallons, about 10, and I'd have to sit there and feather that thing for about 30 minutes until I got everything all calmed down. It's kind of a pain. This one's kind of nice. I can just sit here and watch it. If I see it starting to creep up, I'll just go and turn the heat down real quick. But they say a watched pot never boils. Well, an unwatched pot when you're home brewing will boil over immediately. So you always keep an eye on it. But y'all make sure you always have a beer in your hand too. Coals are looking right too. So I'm ready to go throw some hot dogs and some burgers on as soon as I get this baby to a full rolling boil. Throw my grate on. Talk to the camera, I kind of feel like I'm like a Rachel Ray of home brewing right now or something. In a little bit, we'll have a really nice crudité. I'll pour some EVOO on it. Good Lord, I wish you guys could smell this. It's kind of Now I'm stirring it because I've still got some sugars that have kind of clumped in here. Now they'll separate during the boil, but you know, I like to make sure that I'm not going to get any kind of caramelization on the bottom. I like to have a really, really, really nice work going for the boil. Ah, there we go. All right. Let me show you. Come here. Let's see this real quick. This is one of the most critical parts. All right. See that right there? What we're doing is we're hitting what's called the hot break. Now this is where I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit and watch what happens. See how that changed? Now, if I would have let that just keep going, that thing would have boiled right over. Now, instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it get past this volatile level, the hot break level. And once it's past this hot break level, then I can go ahead and kick that flame like all the way back to max again. But I don't want it to boil over. You don't want it to boil over. Watch for the hot break. That's why I'm like, an unwatched pot and home brewing will boil over in a second.
Never order the same dish twice. And who see the unexpected.
All right, you just kind of want to feather it because you want to get past this part.
From American Express.
Now, a lot of people will add some defoaming agents, some anti-foaming agents to keep it from doing this. I don't like adding anything unnatural into my beer. I know. It's just kind of a kook about it, or whatever. So I just sit there and feather the throttle. Feather the throttle on your gas tank until you get past it. See that right there? We're basically past it. Bam. Done. That's why you don't need any like the special stuff. You don't need any of the special clarifying. You know, the clarifying agents are cool because that will actually like help make your final beer better. But you don't like need any defoaming agents or anything like that. It's just unnecessary. It's more stuff to add to your beer. You know, people are already kooked about you know, the icing glass and the fish guts and stuff they think that's in beer. Don't put anything that doesn't need to go in it. That's my personal opinion. You can do what you want. I mean, that's my personal opinion. All right. So we can crank this baby up. I'm going to go, hey Siri. Set my timer for 60 minutes. The suspense is killing you. It's killing me too. Awesome. All right, so we're going to go ahead and since we're at 60 minutes, we're going to add our only top addition, and that's going to go. I just cut the top off and go right in on top, and just sprinkle it around. Now always sit here. Watch. You might have to crank it down. Make sure that if you get any hot particles that stick up around the top, you just take your ladle, just kind of brush them off. You don't have to be like super kooky about it. You got to think about it. You only got an ounce of hops. This whole batch. Not a whole lot. You really only have to stir right here at the beginning. I just try to keep as much of the sugars off the bottom as possible. Good to go? Woo! It is steamy. All right, so we got an hour to kill. We got some more stuff to do. We got a little bit of sanitizing to do. We're going to have to get our wort chiller ready, other things, but I'm going to go throw some burgers and some hot dogs on. Yeah, it's a little sunny out there. You guys really can't see, but that's what I'm going to do. All right, anybody there? Nope. All right, cool. All right, get to the point where I can start sanitizing. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bucket. Take a little bit of star sand, maybe like 0.2 ounces. Just gonna mix it up. Alright, so I'm going to let this, my bung for my lid. I'm going to take my airlock apart. I'm going to soak all that. This is for my refractometer. This is how I'm going to take a little sample of the wort once it's cooled. I want to make sure that that's good and sanitized. what I'm going to do with the lid is I'm going to take my Star Sand that's in my bottle here. I'm going to spray. I'm going to get all the way down in there. But the whole thing, you really want to make sure that you get down into the cracks. All right. With about 10 minutes left, I'm going to add Irish moss. Irish moss is just a natural fining agent. I mean, there's nothing really to it. It's like carrageenan or something like that. Anyways, it's recommended by Papazian in The Joy of Homebrewing, which is like the homebrewer's Bible. You're just going to use 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon per 5 gallons, and I really just kind of eyeball it. You don't want to add too much, just because it'll leave, a lot of Irish moss floating around. But you don't want to add too little, because then it won't drop the proteins out. Wonderful. So, I'm sure as you guys have seen, there's like a lot of downtime for making beer. That's why you have to drink beer, grilling. It all works. Yeah. Don't try to make it too complicated. Have fun with it. Throw some music on. You're going to spend a couple hours making beer. But the worst excuse, I hate hearing, oh, I don't have the time, oh, I don't have the time. Look, the Bucks game doesn't start until this afternoon. It's not Saturday, there's no college football on. Get out here early Sunday morning. Unless you're going to church, get out here and make some beer. Don't be lazy. If you are going to church, go to early church. Go to the 8:30 Mass. Get out by 9:30, 10 o'clock. Get home, you can be brewing by 11. You'll be done by 2, 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. Game starts at 4. Alright, we're coming up on 2 hours. Got about 18 minutes left in the boil process. About 8 minutes, I'm going to drop the wort chiller in. Oh, I guess I can take some time to talk about the wort chiller. So, we sell these. These are fairly easy to make if you've got something to coil these around. I've got a pretty big one here. This is a 1/2 inch diameter by 50 foot in length wort chiller. It's a pretty big one. But it's a refrigeration coil that you can buy at your local home improvement store. And then it's got some tubing that attaches to it. On one end, your inlet valve. Just got your regular garden faucet adapter, which I'm going to take my hose that I've been using all day and put it right on there. So what's going to happen is this is going to sit down in my brew pot over here. Water is going to come in here and it's going to circulate around. Now that's cold water, at least groundwater temperature, which here in Florida is like 86 degrees, 85 degrees, something like that. And then it's going to coil around inside that boiling hot wort over there. And then the hot water that gets exchanged, it gets turned into hot water through a heat exchange, is going to come out the other side, and it's going to go to water my plants. It's not hot enough to where it's going to scorch them, so that's cool. So, don't really waste water. They've got some of these that are like super efficient, to where you can chill an entire batch down with like less than 10 gallons or something like that. This thing here, it's about, I don't know, anywhere between 8 and 10 minutes on average to get an entire batch down to groundwater temperature. Now I can't get it to pitching temperature. Pitching temperature is going to have to take place inside my fridge over here. Since we're doing a lager, it's about 50 degrees. So I'm not going to be able to pitch it right away. Pitch, when I'm talking pitch, that's pitching the yeast. I'm going to have to put it in the fridge and let it chill probably overnight. Maybe sometime tomorrow afternoon I'll be able to throw the yeast in, which is not a big deal because I'm going to have a perfectly sanitary environment. Plus it's going to be sitting in my fridge. I'm not really too worried about it. I think you actually have to do that. I think to this song, if you don't do that, it's sacrilege. Now, I'll take you guys over here. You can see how much it's actually boiled down. You can see that was the level really when we started. And we've come down, shrunk right about where I thought we would. 1.25 gallons, that's pretty much average for my brew equipment, because I'll boil down 1.25 gallons per hour on an hour boil. 6.25 gallons is what I like to add. So right at 5, I don't have to top off with any water, everything's perfect. No fuss, no muss. So you got to figure out your own brew equipment. The only way you're going to do that, what you can do is you can do a dry run, and you can add, say 6.5 gallons, okay? Boil it for an hour, let it cool down, add it back in, and measure how much you got left. That way you'll know your boil-off rate. And your boil-off rate, it's not like you'll boil less off if you have less, or you'll boil more off if you have more. Your boil-off rate is going to be consistent regardless of how much liquid you have in your pot. So. We won't even look at that. That's right. Alright, we got about 12 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and throw the wort chiller in here. Now the reason I do that is because it's 212 degrees. See, I got some microbes and I got some stuff left on there from my last brew session. It's going to sit in there for 10, 12 minutes at 212 degrees. Nothing's going to survive. So I'm basically sanitizing that. I mean, and trust me, it's not gross. I'm going to sanitize that inside my boiling wort. That way, whenever we start chilling and we get down to the critical temperatures, which is really below 140 degrees, I don't have to worry about any of the microbes on my wort chiller contaminating my beer. Now, the only thing that I caution you about is make sure that you have these ends plugged up, because what's going to happen is as this thing starts to heat up, any of the water that was left in here is going to start to expand, obviously, because water expands, gets bigger whenever it's heated up, and it's going to start squirting out here. Well, if you don't have these capped, it could squirt right back on you. Just go ask my buddy Nick that lives down the road at Crispy Nipple Brewery. Crispy Nipple because hot water shot off and
cinch them up pretty good.
Alright, we're at about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and add 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of Irish moss. I just eyeball it. I figure a pinch, 2 pinches, something like that. Second beer. I was telling you, now the water's starting to spit out. Watch. I would spit right out on you, and that's pretty hot. All right, 3 minutes left.
Alaska.
Now what I'm going to do,
Search for brown bears begins.
I got this sanitizing. Got my water hose. Now I got a quick disconnect, but a quick shut off right there. So I can just unscrew my nozzle. Over here and hook up my wort chiller.
Denali Highway. Low on gas. Pit stop. Fill up. Double point. Yep, that's cold. Higher. Day 2. Coffee. Eggs. Double point. Beautiful. Majestic. Now, where are you, bear? Warm. Warmer. Warmer. Yes.
takes carrying America. It's restful. It's more than a cup. It's done.
All right, we're coming up on the last 45 seconds here. I mean, I can let it go for another minute. I can let it go for another 2 minutes. I mean, it's not. It doesn't have to be exact. You know, if you're off by a little bit, it's perfectly fine. Nothing's going to happen. A lot of beers will go for 90 minutes or 120 minutes. You ever had a 90-minute Dogfish Head? Yeah, they boil it for 90 minutes. You ever had a 120? The beast of all beasts? It's a 120-minute boil. Boil it longer, and what happens is you end up concentrating a lot of the sugars and concentrating a lot of the flavor. Now, of course, you're also going to lose a lot of water volume, so you're going to have more grain volume to make up for it, more water volume, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how they get to super high alcohol contents. Timer's done. All right. This is called flame out right here, obviously, because the flame just went out. If you're making a West Coast IPA, you know, some of the East Coast varieties, some of the other different specialty varieties that we have, will have what's called flame out hops. Flame out hops are just that. Once you kill the flame, you add your hop addition. Now, the wort's still boiling hot. It's 212 degrees, so you're still going to release a lot of those alpha acids, but you're not going to release so many of them. You're going to get the majority of the beta acids. So a little bit of bitterness from the alphas, but the majority is going to be the aroma from the betas. You also have what's called whirlpool hops. On some setups, like my buddy Nick that lives down the road here, you'll actually have a whirlpool setup. So what it is you've got something that sucks the hot wort out, runs it through a pump, and then runs it through the top to make a whirlpool. Enjoying instruction, yeah, we're streaming live to the world. All right, let me go ahead and we're gonna chill. Let your foot. Hot water to spray on you. It's not hot yet. I did the other day. All right. We'll send that water through there as fast as possible, and you can stick your thermometer in there. And sanitize mine first. We're already down to 170. It's been a minute or two. Now, the reason you do that, you get it as cool as possible, as fast as possible. so you can minimize your chances of getting any kind of airborne infection. I've never had one, so. $160. Pretty good. You guys want to see the color? Pretty nice, huh? It's all right. I'm going to give you guys a ringside seat. Whenever I got to pour this into the fermenter. Boom, 100 degrees. That fast. The reason I'm shaking it up and down is because I kind of want to mix that wort up, so I'm not getting like cold and hot spots. It's just mixing it up, getting the surface area inside the coils so that I can just chill it faster. That's all it is. The last few degrees tend to go a little bit slower. It's like you hit this bottleneck. Groundwater temp here in Florida is only about 86, 85 degrees. That's about as cold as I'm going to get it. So once I get that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fermenter in front of it. I'm going to open my valve. I'm going to let it drain in. I'm going to cap it, and I'm going to throw it in my fridge. All right, so I'm almost to that point, so I want to get my bucket ready. I've had it sanitized, but that sanitizer's only been in the bottom part. So what I really want to do is I want to take my spray bottle, and I want to make sure that I hit all the top parts, and then I'm going to seal it up for a second and give it a real good switch around. Alright, so you can do one of two things. You can go ahead and you can save your sanitizer if you want, or you can go ahead and dump it. It's entirely up to you. How cost conscious do you want to be? I like to save my sanitizer and use it over and over and over again. As long as the pH level stays where it's supposed to be, no problem with that whatsoever. For today though, I'm just going to go ahead and dump it because I got plenty of sanitizer stored up. Alright, as you'll see, I don't really care about getting all the foam and stuff off. I'm going to leave a little bit of foam in here. So what it is, this is just sanitized water that I'm putting in my airlock. It's perfectly fine. Have a little sanitized water. Not going to hurt anything. Alright. That's about as cold as it's going to get. Alright, so now what I want to do is I kind of want to give you guys the view of what's going on here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull the wort chiller out. Go ahead and fill my water. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to open up my valve. Get you guys to see that. How pretty is that? Huh? It's gorgeous. That's what it's supposed to look like. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a sample of this because I need to know what my pre-fermentation specific gravity is. So, remember I told you guys earlier that I use a refractometer? So this is pretty simple. I think I showed it in my last video. I'm going to use my little pipette right here that's been in my sanitizer. I'm going to grab a little bit of the wort and I'm going to put it right here, right on this screen, and then I'm going to close this flap and I'm going to look right in there, and as you guys can see, there's a little scale that I'll be able to look at, and that'll tell me exactly where my specific gravity is. And all I do is I just look up into the light source so that I can see the scale on here. Alright, so I read things in Plato. Some people read things in specific gravity. The original gravity on this thing is supposed to be, it's like 10 something, 10.55. Yep. All right, so the target specific gravity is supposed to be 1.055. So if that's all you look at is specific gravity, or like 1.055, like on the nose. For me, that's a little under 15 degrees Plato. Here, let me see if I can get you guys a good look-see in here. Probably not. Yeah. So, anyways, you'd have to see it from my perspective. But inside there, you'll see a little scale, and it's your specific gravity. And my specific gravity, it tells me on here it's 1.055. I cross-reference that to my recipe sheet. My recipe sheet says that I'm supposed to have 1.055. That means I hit my specific gravity. That's awesome. That's exactly what you want. That means everything that you did throughout your brew day thus far was correct. Hitting your specific gravity is one of the most difficult things to do. You know, a lot of it has to do with adding too much water, you know, and diluting down your wort. You know, some of it will have to do with boiling off too much, whatever the case may be. I don't know that I've heard anybody complain about having their gravity too high, but too low, it's a little bit difficult to fix. The only really way you can do it is to fire the kettle back up and boil that baby off until you get it to the right gravity. So as we get here towards the end, I don't know if you'll notice, but my ball valve is actually sitting off the bottom of my pot by about that much, and there's a reason for that. So there's a lot of solids and stuff that are going to collect, a lot of hot particles, a lot of unboiled ingredients that are going to collect at the bottom that I don't want really to get into my fermenter. The less that I have to worry about later, the better, right? But there is some really, really good work that I want to make sure that I don't miss. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tip the pot just a little bit, but I'm going to keep my eye down in here to keep from getting any of that gunk in here. All right, now what a lot of people will do is they'll go ahead and they'll dump the whole thing back in the kettle, and so they can provide a little bit more aeration to the wort. The more oxygen that you can introduce into the system now, the better, because your yeast is going to need it. It's going to almost go into a sugar shock because of so much that it's presented with. The more oxygen is going to make for a better environment for the yeast. So I'm not really going to do that because I don't feel that I have to. I've got enough foam built up in here, and I can tell you that I got enough oxygen in this baby. Look. There's plenty. I'm not worried about it. But if for some reason you didn't have a big layer of foam, or you have maybe a smaller ball valve, or whatever the case may be, you might want to go ahead and dump it back in and run it a couple of times just so that you can be sure that you get enough oxygen in your system. Now, since I said this is 85 degrees, I need to get this really to 50 degrees before I pitch my yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and cap it. I'm going to throw it into my fermenter, which has already been pre-chilled to 50 degrees. I'm going to add my yeast tonight, sometime tomorrow, something like that. So let me cap this. I'll be right back. What's that?
What do you? That's awesome. Are you doing it?
What?
You
Oh yeah, yeah. I just made a batch of Munich Dunkel.
too. That's pretty awesome.
All right. All right. So that's pretty much our brew day. The only thing that's left is really the cleanup. You want to make sure that you spray your equipment down really well, get any of the big particles off. You don't really need to sanitize. You can run it in PBW if you've got some, or PBW, some OxyClean if you've got some really built up stuff. I always OxyClean my boil kettle at the very least, and I'll soak my work chiller in it for 10-15 minutes, something like that. I'll empty it out, scrub it down a little bit, and then I'll set it up, and it'll be ready for next brew day. So let's take a look at total time elapsed. For those that think that takes a long time, so I started the broadcast at 11 o'clock this morning. Now, granted, I had all my mise en place, right? I had all my sanitizer, I had my water pulled out, I had my boil kettle set up. I had my ingredients out. It's now 1:35, so it's 2.5 hours. I hadn't started boiling water yet. Nothing else was ready to go. I mean, I added water right when you guys saw it. Yeah, so I didn't speed anything up. This has been live. So 2.5 hours, start really to finish, if you've got the right tools, right? And it's not really that expensive. I've got a little $70 boil kettle that I got from Lowe's. The wort chiller I made myself. Of course, I do sell those. I sell them for like 120 bucks. It's a little expensive, but yeah, it's what it is. It's copper. Copper's expensive. But other than that, I've got my hose that runs from my spigot. I got a little table that I throw out here. It's got my lunch and my beer and my cleaners and a couple little tools like my refractometer and my sanitizer and my cleaner. But other than that, nothing huge. I mean, this is a life hacker's dream. So, anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. The next step, I'm going to let this cool down overnight. I want to make sure that it gets right around 50 degrees. I'm going to pitch approximately 22 grams of yeast, which is 2 packets because it's a lager. You always want to pitch 2 packets. And then I'm going to let it sit in fermentation for probably 3 weeks. Just because I want to make sure that it gets where it needs to be. I'll check the gravity on it after that. If it's not where I want it to be, I'll slowly raise the temperature to about 60 degrees for a couple of days to encourage the yeast to finish off fermentation. And then I'll transfer everything over into a keg, into just a regular soda keg. And then I'll throw that on the freezer side of my fridge over here, right at 32 degrees. I'll hold it at 32 degrees somewhere around 4 weeks, maybe up to 6 weeks, it depends. And this is going to be the lagering process. This is a clarification process. This is what gives it, that nice crispness that you think about when you're drinking a lager. And it should be ready somewhere around, I don't know, Christmas, New Year, something like that. And it'll be a nice holiday drink. It'll be good for when people come over, want to sit by the fire, maybe roast some marshmallows, do some s'mores, hot dogs, whatever the case may be. Just pour them a nice dark Munich lager and make some new friends. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I plan on doing this pretty much every single brew day, unless it's some unforeseen circumstance. Next time we'll probably get into a little bit more difficult brewing. We'll do a full mash. We'll probably add another hour and 15 minutes to the brew day, but it gives you a little bit more control over your ingredients. You can actually pick your base malts, and you can pick a wide variety of your specialty grains that you're going to have in there. I don't really know what I want to do yet. I'll be thinking about it over the next probably month or so. But I'll go ahead and send something out on Twitter. I'll send something out on Facebook, all that good stuff. If you guys want to tune in, I really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging out for Brew Day number 2, Periscope session for Swan Brewing. I'm Dan, and brew on, guys.